Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. Hang on, I'm trying to put my. Oh, why is that doing that? Anyway, how are you all? I hope you're all well. It's Saturday if you're watching this live. And for those of you who don't know who I am Vicky Marie and I live in mainland Spain. And in this video that we're going to talk about today, just quickly, we're going to talk about this big case that's coming up this year. I think it's August that the actual case will be heard. The case of Brian Kohberger, or the Idaho 4. Sometimes it's known, but do you know what made me angry when I was researching this is it's really Brian Kohberger, his name, everybody knows it, don't they? But the actual victims, Kaylee, Xana, Ethan and Madison, they're harder because people describe them as the Idaho 4 or whatever, but they're individuals with their own names. And Brian Kohberger, he's turning into one of these sort of Ted Bundy types, isn't he? That everyone's fascinated with. But really, you know, the concentration, the attention should be on the victims. But of course, that's hard because everyone's fascinated or intrigued or outraged, whichever word you want to call it. Everyone's, you know, how could this man, if it's true, allegedly, because he hasn't, you know, he's innocent till he's proven guilty. How could this man, Brian Kohberger, let's have a look at him. How could he walk into this house, which apparently he did? He walked into this student house. These students were in there, and he murdered 4 of them. But there are 2 other students that were in there that, for whatever reason, were left to live. And what we don't know his motive. If he did, in fact, do it, we don't know why he did it. You know, there's obviously things sort of leaking out now about we're in the sort of discovery stage, so there will be things coming out like these text messages that have been released that we're going to look at today, and all leading up to the trial. Bits and pieces will leak out, but only the jury in this case will know the whole story, won't they? And I think what's intriguing is how he's developed this sort of fan club. You know, people think you get these absolute Fruit Loops who think he's brilliant, he's great, he's good looking. Oh my God, he couldn't possibly have done it. You know, so there's a lot of that going on at the moment as well. And you know what, even if the trial comes up and he's found guilty, that will still go on as it's gone on with the Delphi murders. It goes on with Lucy Letby. It goes on with lots of people who have, you know, done horrible things. There'll always be some people who think they're innocent for whatever reason. That maybe, you know, you might think it's on good grounds, but thing is, we don't know with Brian yet. We don't know what the grounds are because we don't know the full story. We only know, don't we, what's been released so far. So let me just tell you what happened. If you don't know much about this case, but in the early morning hours of November the 13th, 2022, 4 University of Idaho students were fatally stabbed. Now, I can see on this picture there's only 3 of them, so I want to put all 4 of them up, of course. So this was Ethan, the only boy who was stabbed, and his girlfriend. That was Madison, wasn't it? I think. And Xana and Kaylee were friends. But there were other people in this house. The house, the home where it all happened, the student house, has now been demolished. So there's no going back there again to check anything out. That was a bone of contention, wasn't it? Because a lot of people thought that the place should not be demolished, you know, until after the trial. But anyway, it has been demolished. But of course, extensive forensics were done, photos were taken, videos were taken. And yeah, so all these 4 young people with promising life in front of them allegedly were murdered by Brian Christopher Kohberger. So he has been charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony burglary. And the prosecutors are seeking the death penalty so far with him. Now, he's got a bit of bargaining power because, you know, he could give out some information and maybe that would escape in the death penalty. But, you know, he's definitely looking at life without parole. So he's having a jury trial. I don't think it's going to be televised. And it will begin on August the 11th, 2025 in Boise, Idaho. So that's where this all happened, in Idaho. Though the judge has permitted a sort of a change of venue. So it's not going to be maybe in the actual area, but it's going to be in Boise instead. So as this trial comes up in August, of course, it will be, you know, there'll be all sorts of information coming out, and we're going to look at some of that information today. But I just want to explain a bit about the case. They lived in a rented off-campus residence in Moscow, Idaho. Let's have a look at Moscow, Idaho. I need to share that. Hang on, I need to hide that. I need to share that. So there's Moscow, ironically, Moscow in the middle of America, in Idaho. And where is it? If you look at it in context with the rest of the USA, it's not that far from Washington, Seattle, Oregon. It's not a massive place. Oh, let me see. Oh, God. Sorry, something just jumped up there. So it's right up here, right near Canada, actually, isn't it? Yeah. And Boise, we just saw that there. There's Boise where the actual trial is going to be held. Now, where's Moscow, actually? I'd quite like to see where Moscow is, because the trial's not going to be held in Moscow. It's been moved. Anyway. Oh, Twin Falls. Oh, so Boise's right down here and Moscow's up there. So that's quite a distance, isn't it? So anyway, it's been, oh God, it makes me a bit angry this when defendants request a change of venue, because they say they won't get a fair trial otherwise. But, you know, everybody knows about this case all over the world. So, you know, it won't make any difference that it's been moved from Moscow to Boise. You know, people were still in Boise will still know about this case. You know, that's what happens when you're a psychopathic killer who kills 4 people. You know, don't expect that people won't know about it. No, sorry. Allegedly, that you allegedly did it. We'll see later. There's a lot of people think he didn't do it. You know, he's got a massive fan club. He's got like this Ted Bundy type fan club. Quite often these young, if you like, because he's quite young, isn't he? I think he's about 30. these young killers, when this when this mugshot was released, everyone was going mad. Oh, he's so handsome. To me, he looks just like a psychopath would look. His eyes are, imagine those eyes being the last thing that you see before he sort of, stabs you or whatever. Looks like a psycho to me. Sorry, but he does. That's my opinion, and I'm entitled to it. And I'm not saying he is. I don't know. He's got his trial to get through. But if he's found guilty, he'll be found guilty for a reason. And if he's found innocent, he'll get found innocent for a reason. And I know there'll be people out there going, oh, no, he's not guilty. Well, we'll see. Okay, so what did I want to have a look at now? Yeah, these newly unsealed documents. So this is what's come out recently. Sorry, I'm just trying to work out where I am here. Hang on. So I need to share. So these are recently, there's been quite a few documents have come out recently, but I think the most sort of impactful ones are the text messages that were sent by the surviving victims on the night that this happened. And, if you sort of read these, we can't listen to their text messages, they're not audio. To me, I look at them and I think these kids, because they are kids, they're only young, are like, they can't believe what's happening. They've had a few drinks themselves. It's, can you imagine it? It's the early hours of the morning. You'd be thinking, what's going on? What's happening? You wouldn't really be realize, would you? And that's, I think, what comes over in these messages. So let's have a little look at this particular video about it.
New DNA evidence introduced in the case of Brian Kohberger, and a glimpse at the 911 call and the text sent between surviving roommates in the home where 4 University of Idaho students were brutally stabbed to death. According to recently unsealed documents, at 4:22 in the morning on November 13th, 2022, one roommate known as DM texts another known as BF, quote, "No one is answering. I'm really confused right now." DM then texts one of the victims, Kaylee Gonsalves, "Kaylee, what's going on?" And then again to BF, "I'm freaking out right now." They mention a ski mask and say, "I'm not kidding. So freaked out." BF texts back, "Come to my room. Run." Prosecutors asked the court to admit the exchanges in evidence. The filing also includes a redacted transcript of the 911 call from the home after the unresponsive body of Xana was discovered. The callers telling dispatch they found one of their roommates passed out, saying, quote, "She was drunk last night and she's not waking up." Dispatch asks if she's breathing, and they said no. Then someone on
Yeah, I think that's a lot of the confusion in this case, isn't it? Is because they'd been out and they'd been drinking, they were probably like oblivious to what was going on. Also, when you look at the actual house itself, you can see it's on different levels. It's not like just being in a small place with all the bedrooms leading off each other. It's sort of higgledy-piggledy, isn't it? So you can see that something could be going on over one side of the house, and you'd be like, something was going on, because didn't they hear noises that they thought sounded like somebody wrestling with the dog, playing with the dog, and you'd think, it depends on your house that you live in, isn't it? Some people live in small houses, and I don't know also the way my house is in particular, there's only one entrance. So, if somebody coming into my house, they'd have to walk past me for a start, because I'm normally at the computer in the living room, like where they'd have to walk in through that. They'd also have to get through 3 dogs and, an adult son who's like, a boxer. But apart from that, because say they came in the early hours of the morning when everyone was asleep, they just couldn't do it because there's only one entrance and one exit. But I think there's something about this house and the way it's all sort of all over the place. And although there was a lot of people in there and 2 people survived this attack, I think by the time whoever it was, because allegedly it's Brian Kohberger, walked past one of the people that survived this attack, who said that they were just walked past, eyes staring forward, etc. Maybe they'd already sort of, sated themselves by then with whatever they did. Thing is, we don't know yet what the motive was for these crimes. First of all, Brian's got to be found guilty. Also, we've got to find out why, if he is guilty, why did he do it? Did he fixate on one of the victims and the other victims were just collateral damage? Or was he, surveying all of them, stalking all of them? And, it was like, was it just a fantasy that he had to kill all these people? So Brian Kohberger was a criminology student, so he was interested in true crime. But yeah, up to now, I don't think we know the actual connections as to why he did it. Was he targeting one person, the others just got killed almost as an afterthought? Or was he trying to cause as much mayhem as possible? That's what we don't know. Well, there's a lot of things we don't know. The thing is, every now and again, I will do a little spotlight on this case. I don't like going on and on about it because, in these sort of cases, when they're starting to release information, etc., we just don't know until the trial the full extent of the information. We get little nuggets like this, but, what does it tell us really?
Scene says, I think we have a homicide. Separately, filings reveal a 3-person mixture of unknown DNA was found under 21-year-old victim Madison Mogen's fingernails. Kohberger's defense team has asked that the DNA evidence be kept from the jury because jurors could believe it is Kohberger's, but according to his defense, it is not. Kohberger has pleaded not guilty. His trial.
This is another weird thing now that's come out, that there's different DNA under one of the victim's fingernails. Well, do you know what? I mean, I don't know how DNA gets under your fingernails. They haven't said whose DNA it is. It's strange that the defense don't want those DNA tests to be revealed, because you'd think it would be good for their case that there was different DNA under, I think it was Kaylee, was it? Under one of the victims anyway, under their fingernails. That for them would be good, because if they could say, well, there's 3 different people's DNA there under her fingernails, but why, if Brian's is there, what difference does it make? What about these other 2 people? But of course, then it still remains the case of why is Brian's DNA under her fingernails? Because you notice, as always, when the police were interviewing him, it's like, do you know them? Have you ever been there? No. So when they're asking those questions, have you ever been in their house? Have you ever had a relationship with them? Have you ever been close to them? And when the person is saying no, well, then it's the stinger is like, well, why is your DNA under their fingernails? Because at the end of the day, if, I don't know, if one of my students, when they start classes and normally come in, we shake hands. So maybe I've transferred my DNA onto them. If further on down the line something happens to them, they go, they've got their Spanish teachers, because for those of you who don't know, I do teach Spanish. They've got their Spanish teachers' DNA under their fingernails, or on their hands or wherever it is, or on their clothes. So people might say, oh, well, why have they got the Spanish teacher's DNA? So that's what I'm trying to say. To me, if I was the defense, now I don't know that, but the thing is, I don't know, obviously, the whole story. you'd be like, oh, good that there's other people's DNA there as well, because that shows it might not have been Brian, it might have been somebody else. Now, these are another defence team that I think have got a big ask, if you like. They're defending someone where there's massive amounts of evidence against them, but they are still innocent until proven guilty, aren't they?
Was set to begin in August. He could face the death penalty if convicted.
Well, I think if he is convicted, I think he should face the death penalty.
New details about the night 4 University of Idaho students were murdered are revealed from text messages the surviving roommates sent to each other. Plus, we now know what happened when the roommates called 911 8 hours after the murders. I lay out the timeline and other details. Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. From the very beginning, there have been so many questions about what happened the night 4 University of Idaho students were murdered in a house off campus in November of 2022. 2 roommates were there and were not harmed, thankfully. Now we're getting some answers about what happened that night from text messages the roommates exchanged right after police say the murders of Maddie Mogan, Kaylee Gonsalves, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle were carried out. Now I'm going to go over those text messages along with the transcript of the 911 call that was placed more than 8 hours after the murders. The prosecution wants to introduce those texts and the 911 call as evidence at Brian Kohberger's trial later this year. Kohberger faces the possibility of the death penalty if he's convicted of the murders. Kohberger's lawyers are also asking again to strike the death penalty. More on that later. Prosecutors say the texts between the 2 surviving roommates, DM and BF, provide a timeline and should be allowed under an exception to the hearsay rule at trial. The 2 exceptions, present sense impression, that's a statement describing or explaining an event or condition made while or immediately after the declarant perceived it, or an excited utterance, a statement relating to a startling event or condition made while the declarant was under the stress of excitement that it caused.
Now, the problem we've got here, so whoever the jurors are going to end up being, don't matter if it's in Boise, if it's in bloody Moscow, if it's in Timbuktu, whoever the jurors are, they're going to have watched this. Now, they probably, I don't know when they call the jurors, probably nearer the time. So up to now, they won't know they're going to be jurors, but everybody is watching this case. This is what I'm trying to say. Everybody is watching it. So how is it ever going to be a free trial in a way? So you can understand why in Spain, because in Spain, as I say, I'm based in Spain. In Spain, everything is secret. Everything. You would not get this until a case is heard, and even after sometimes, just never get any information. But definitely before the case, as long as an investigation is going on, you would not get any of this. And I know in America there's a lot more freedom of information, and I'm not saying that's not good. What I'm saying is, what is the likelihood that any juror that they end up choosing will not have heard of this case? So releasing these sort of things, really, we should not be talking about these cases until the trial, I think. I've come round to thinking that, because otherwise it's like you can't help but prejudice. It's not through any bad feeling or bad meaning or bad intentions. You've got to be sort of, anyway. So obviously I'm sort of telling you about it now, but as I'm saying it, I'm thinking, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. I don't know. Anyway, they're giving us the information.
Now, the prosecutors say one surviving roommate, DM, was awake and texting the town's rideshare driver at 2:10 a.m. to see if he was driving that night. Then prosecutors write, from 4:19 and 7 seconds to 4:21 and 50 seconds, DM attempts to call BF, Xana Kernodle, Kaylee Gonsalves, and Madison Mogan. All of those calls were unanswered. According to the timeline laid out by police and prosecutors, Xana, Kaylee, and Maddie had been murdered by that point in time. and DM had seen a man in black carrying a vacuum-type object walking through the house. Then, from 4:22 and 8 seconds to 4:24 and 27 seconds, DM and BF sent the following text messages. DM wrote to BF, "No one is answering." And then DM followed up with, "I'm really confused right now." DM then texted Kaylee Gonsalves, "Kaylee, what's going on?" BF then sent a text to DM saying, "Yeah, dude, WTF." BF then followed up to DM with, "Xana was wearing all black." DM then said to BF, "I'm freaking out right now." DM then said to BF, "No, it's like ski mask almost." BF says to DM, "STFU," probably in disbelief. BF then says to DM, "Actually," and DM responds to BF like he had something over his forehead and a little in mouth. DM then says to BF, "I'm not kidding, so freaked out." BF says to DM, "So am I." DM then says to BF, "My phone is going to die." BF then says to DM, "Come to my room." She follows up with, "Run, down here." These text messages raise questions about whether the roommates may have heard more than what we've read about.
Now you can bear in mind, and you can be certain of that whatever the police are releasing as the text messages, or whatever the information the police are releasing, you can be sure there's more information than that they're not releasing. They're releasing what they think they have to. There could be more messages. There could even be video. We just don't know until the trial. Then we'll find it all out. But they're chilling. It's chilling, that, isn't it? Imagine. I mean, because I'm thinking about that house and how big it is. So if you were in one room, you've heard something going on, you feel like something's going on in the other rooms, but you can't get hold of 4 of the people in that house. You can get hold of one of the people in that house. You just want them to come to your room or you to go to their room. But you've seen a man in a bloody mask walking around, according to these messages. So can you imagine how terrified? These are just young kids. So those 2 people that lived in the house that survived, let's get their names. Let's see. Who are the surviving roommates? Do you know what? It's so difficult to find the names of anyone except him, which is starting to annoy me a bit, actually. Anyway, to find their names. I mean, I'm on here, it's saying the 2 surviving roommates, blah, 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 blah. But what are their names? So anyway, according to what I'm reading here, the surviving roommate stated she opened her door twice within a short space of time. And the second time she heard what sounded like crying coming from, Canodle's room, and a male voice saying, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." Security cameras near the home picked up the sound of whimpering, a loud thud, and a dog barking numerous times, starting around 4:17 a.m. And the surviving roommate allegedly opened her door a 3rd time and saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask that covered his mouth and nose walking towards her. But she said she did not recognize him, but he walked past her and used a sliding glass door to exit. And she said she stood in a frozen shock phase and then locked herself in her rooms. Anyway, so you can imagine it was a horrible crime scene. There was a lot of blood. It's just awful. So it's going to be a big thing. There's lots of information, as I say, come out already. Let's watch the end of this video.
Previously, the DM heard crying and a man saying, "It's okay, I'm here to help." Then DM places a phone call. At 4:24 and 39 seconds, DM calls Ethan Chapin and the call was unanswered. DM and BF continue to text. At 4:24 and 58 seconds, DM texts BF, "I'm scared though." And BF responds at 4:25 and 16 seconds, "Yeah, I know, but it's better than being alone." Then there's a gap in texting and calling. The next morning at 10:23 a.m., DM texts Kaylee Gonsalves, "Please answer." Then she sends a text to Maddie Mogan, "Are you up?" And then again to Kaylee Gonsalves, "Are you up?" More than an hour later, the prosecution says there are more text messages. At 11:39.
A lot of the problem that people have with this case is the time difference, because all this was going on in the early hours of the morning, and the actual time that they phoned the police, was much later. So that's a little bit of a bone of contention. But I wonder if they just didn't realize what was going on, or they, when you've had a drink, they've been out, they've been drinking, maybe they've been taking some substances. I don't know what they'd been doing, but they'd been having like a party type time. Did they even realize what was happening?
9 a.m., DM texted her father. Then at 11:50, DM received a text from someone identified as Jay that says, "Bro." At that same moment, DM calls someone identified as EA. And then at 11:51, she receives another text from Jay. Minutes later, that 911 call is placed. And at 1:04 p.m., DM received a vandal alert that was a text from the university telling the students all to stay in their homes. Now, prosecutors, of course, want to play the 911 call for the jury. The motion states, the statements on the 911 call are hearsay, but fall within firmly rooted hearsay exceptions and should be allowed. In general, testimony that is hearsay is excludable at trial. However, there are many exceptions to this rule. Two firmly rooted exceptions are Idaho Rule of Evidence 803, present sense impression, a statement describing or explaining an event or condition made while or immediately after the declarant perceived it, or the 911 call. And we've heard...
we see 911 calls all the time. They plainly fall, in most cases, in the hearsay exceptions that the prosecution is talking about here, and they get entered into evidence all the time.
One thing that I thought was, that the surviving roommates, BF and DM, were both, still a question that we can't answer at this point in time. I mean, the roommate...
And this was Brian Kohberger's car that was seen in the vicinity. At 4:06, that's his car. Or allegedly.
Then there are many financial records for the four victims, the surviving roommates and Brian Kohberger. And some of the financial records for Kohberger include records for Crypto.com. And there are purchase records for Brian Kohberger from Amazon and Dick's Sporting Goods. There are also financial records from Marshall's for Brian Kohberger. We know a Marshall's receipt was seized from his apartment. And there are Target financial records that the prosecutor wants to introduce. And the prosecution also wants to introduce, under the business records exception, transaction records for Brian Kohberger at Under Armour, along with surveillance and financial records from Kohberger at Walmart. Meanwhile, Kohberger's attorneys are looking to strike the death penalty again. They're asking for this, saying the state has given them a massive 68 terabytes of discovery with no index for what they plan to use at trial. And the state...
So to me, I think, if he is found guilty, and the only way they should take the death penalty off the table is if he, admits to everything, saves the families going through everything that they're going to have to go through. But is that going to happen? So I just want to show you now about how Brian Kohberger has turned into this sort of Ted Bundy type, all these saddos out there that, like to follow killers, find killers attractive, or, I don't know, just like... So this photo, look, he looks so smug as well, doesn't he? Look Look at his eyes. Oh my God. Just awful. Just gives you the creeps. Imagine them being the last eyes that you saw on this earth. Anyway, never mind. So when this mugshot came out, people were all over Reddit. Oh yeah, it looks great. Oh, he's handsome. Oh, he's this. Oh, he's that. Oh my God. Well, on another video, I'll be going into, look, one Facebook user creepily commented on his mugshot, hot like a movie star. That scruff is looking good on him. A second added to the group. A third questioned, is this real? He looks handsome. So you don't think that handsome men or pretty women can ever commit? We've just been looking at a case of Jodie Arias. A lot of people didn't think she could have done it because she's an attractive girl, petite girl. Same with these men like Ted Bundy, like every man. If he would have been some ugly, I don't know, if he would have been some vagrant or maybe an immigrant or something like that, but they can't believe. I think a lot of people cannot believe that nice looking, respectable people commit heinous crimes. So another wrote, he looks like he's been on holiday, relaxed, calm and well looked after. You know, I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's fucking ridiculous. You know, he has no murderous eyes, man. No murderous eyes. Anyway, not that it matters whether he's got murderous eyes or not. What matters is the evidence. To me, I don't think you could get any more murderous eyes than those. It's funny how we all look at things differently, isn't it? You know, I look at him like I look at a lot of killers and I just think, oh my God, the evil just shines out of them. And that's how I feel about him. But obviously other people don't feel the same. You know, it's not necessarily that I'm right and they're wrong. We'll see what happens in the trial. But the thing is, whatever happens in the trial, so if he's found not guilty, I've got to accept that. I personally think he is guilty. But of course, it could come to the trial and maybe he'll be found not guilty. And whatever verdict that comes up, that's the verdict you have to accept, because that's the way the justice service works. Then it's up to them to appeal or whatever. But if he never gets his appeal or never gets a successful appeal, that's probably because he's guilty. You know, that, you know, I do believe in the justice system, especially these days, because it's different now. We've got DNA and things like that to sort of prove things. But anyway. Okay, so I just thought I'd let you know what was going on in this case. I'm off now. I've got to go off, have some lunch. Then I've got to go and pick up number one son from work. I don't know where my picture keeps disappearing to. Anyway, enjoy your weekend. Hopefully I'll be back at some point over the weekend. I'm not quite sure yet. We'll see what's going on. And I'll see you soon in the next video. And until then, justice for these four poor murdered children. I mean, to me, they're children. Obviously, they're not. They're young adults. But Kaylee, Xana, Ethan and Madison, it's all about them as far as I'm concerned, not about Brian Kohberger. So I'll see you really soon in the next video. And until then, may your God go with you. Thank you. Bye. Oh, let me put my banner on. I have put you. Bye.